We have been watching the new season of King of the Hill on Hulu, the revival. Have you had a chance to check this out, Andrew?
No, I have not. Not yet. Heard only good things.
It's fantastic. It is. Yeah, I want to be careful not to build it up too much, but it's one of the best legacy works, sequels, revivals that I've seen. But because it's just a new season of King of the Hill, like they've aged all the characters up, and there's a big gap in time in the universe, and then we just pick up with these characters and have more great, consistent, good King of the Hill. And that's all I really want from this series. And it doesn't make the mistake. I know we've discussed this before. I don't even remember if it was on mic, but it doesn't make the mistake of a lot of legacy stuff where the entire purpose of the legacy material is just to talk about how great the original was. You know what I mean? Rather than being its own story in that universe, which is, again, it's what we really want from these things. What I want.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody about that, also about King of the Hill, because it came up, and he was saying very similarly that it's very, very good. And I told him, I was like, it sounds like one of the best, reasons that it is succeeding is because it's not Memba King of the Hill, the show. Like, it's not a show that's about, hey, remember how great King of the Hill was? Because, like I've spoken about before, about how Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think, falls into a lot of those traps of, like, it just can't stop referencing the original. Like, it can't, like, and not in ways that, like, make sense, but in, like, oh, here's another callback, here's another visual, here's another reference, here's another thing. And it's like, let the movie breathe and tell its own story. And, like, you can fit in, like, obviously I have no issue with callbacks. I don't have any issue with Easter eggs. Obviously I don't. But when your movie is so bogged down that it can't be its own thing, and Ghostbusters Afterlife is hardly the only legacy thing guilty of that. And that's not to say the movie doesn't still succeed, mostly in spite of those things, but the fact that it's just more King of the Hill, and I wouldn't think that Mike Judge would, like, do, like, just a nostalgia run. Like, that doesn't feel like his vibe. Not really the thing that he would do. Like, if he's gonna go back, it's because he kind of wants to do, even if it's not necessarily something different, it's because he's not content to just do the exact same thing, or at least not do something that's just built on, hey, let's just make a bunch of references. And
I haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, famously. I think it's come up a little times, but from what I know about it, it sounds like, what you've said about it sounds like it may fall into those traps. I think Jurassic World has some elements of that. It doesn't really know if it wants to just celebrate the originals, be its own thing. I think The Force Awakens succeeds in spite of it. I think a lot of it is just, hey, how great is Star Wars? It's a movie about how great Star Wars is, but I still think it's a good time. I think that Matrix Resurrections is interesting because it's not about how great the Matrix was. It's like a meta look at legacy materials, and it's like a dissection of the very issue that we're talking about, which, we covered that episode. Say whatever you want about if it lands for you or not. Its ambition is to be celebrated, in my opinion. They did not take the easy route on that at all. But yeah, it's just interesting. Legacy stuff has just become so commonplace because, companies like, oh, we have a bankable IP. People, a base amount of people are going to show up to the theaters no matter what. At least that's what they're hoping for. But what you do with those returning characters and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with it, but of all things, the Hulu revival of King of the Hill may be the one that's nailing it the most. And I can't help but think, Andrew, what a revival would look like of the movie we are talking about today. What if they made a legacy sequel to today's movie? Part of me kind of wants to see it, but let's talk about that first movie. Let's bring in that theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by my girl power co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Hello.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Real Band Month, and this week we are talking the 1997 film Spice World. Andrew, of course, we're calling this month Real Band Month because it's in opposition to the Fake Band Month we did previously in our show, movies about bands that don't actually exist. It's very funny to me that this movie is based around the Spice Girls, because especially in the 90s, when like the concept of selling out and being a true artist and stuff were so in vogue, no one would ever call the Spice Girls a real band. Like a big, anybody is too cool for pop music, like, oh, that's, manufactured garbage, it's not real music, etc., etc. But here we are giving them that label, real band, 30 some odd years later. Andrew, what is your history with this movie, Spice World? Did you see it before? Did you catch it in theaters back in the day? And I guess, what's your history with the Spice Girls?
Very little. Obviously, I existed in a time when their popularity was at an all-time high. I remember one year when my school talent show had several groups of girls all just miming to Spice Girls songs. It was a time to be alive. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of history with it. I didn't see this in theaters. I've never really gone back and watched it. I know it has a bit of a following. I feel like Alamo has shown it before. I know that it has maybe a Josie and the Pussycats-esque kind of cult following, but at the same time, Spice Girls were massively popular. And it's always funny to me that people because it's funny because you hear that all about today's music, how 19 songwriters, nobody's nobody's doing their own stuff, and they're not real musicians and blah 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 blah, and that stuff still happens today, and people will insist 20 years ago it wasn't like this, and it's well, no, people said this exact same stuff 20 years ago. And guess what? I'm gonna be honest with you guys, people have said this about every generation of music. There have always been people who were labeled as quote unquote not real musicians or not a real band. And guess what, guys? We're probably not talking about groups of people who got lambasted for not being a real band this month. So we're not finished with that discussion. And the band we've still yet to talk about is from even way before the Spice Girls. So if you think this is a new argument, or you think that now music is different, or here's the thing. Manufactured pop music has existed since popular music has been a thing. There has been somebody whose only job is to come in and sing a song. You look at the Osmonds, you look at, into the 80s and the 90s with various different pop groups, manufactured by, songwriters and producers that knew exactly what they were doing. They've always existed. But hey, no disrespect to the Osmonds. Crazy Horses is a great album. But it's always funny to me that it's that thing where we're oh, it didn't used to be this way, and I'm no, you complained about this then too.
I remember
we've never escaped it.
Being in high school, probably peak music snob phase, movie snob phase, but you're just really getting into the stuff and real art, real artists, man, and what that means. And with music, it's I like artists that write their own music, that's real stuff, otherwise it's just it's just karaoke music or whatever. There's no soul to it. There's no authenticity.
Man,
you're just singing someone else's
douches,
words, man. But I
words
remember
don't mean anything to you, dude.
I remember being in high school, and you do the thing where you start going backwards through the decades and getting into classic rock and stuff. And I remember picking up Three Dog Night, greatest hits set or whatever, and checking these guys out, and in the liner notes of this greatest hits, whoever wrote the little blurb about the band said one of their best strengths was picking really good songwriters to work with, like a Randy Newman and stuff. And I remember chewing on that and being wait, what? They didn't write a lot of this music? Like, they used songwriters? Like, what is even the point? Like, it really, like,
Like, broke your brain.
I felt
Jesus.
conflicted about how I should feel about this band. And it's so funny to me because, like, there's a lot of bands, like, let's look at rock bands, where, like, the lead singer doesn't write the songs. That happens all the time. Guitarist writes the songs, or maybe the whole band writes or whatever. Yep. But, like, we have no problem with that singer expressing through his vocals and emotion someone else's words, as long as that other person is in the band. But if the person they collaborate with is another musician or is a songwriter or works as a producer, like, all of a sudden it's like an invalid collaboration, and you realize this is all just stupid, arbitrary rules you're making up for yourself to judge the music. And, like, most importantly, one doesn't negate the other. You can celebrate an artist for writing their own music without, at the same time, thinking any artist that works with collaborators is less than. It's just other ways to do it. And what really matters, Andrew, what really matters is the music at the end of the day. Like...
Yeah, like, if you enjoy it, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Like, it really doesn't matter how it... Like, well, and then the other end of that spectrum is, like, who is somebody who does write a lot of her songs? Taylor Swift. And all people do is trash her all the time as, just being garbage pop music, even though she's a major creative force on all of her work. And it's almost like women just can't win in this world. But don't get me wrong, she's doing just fine. But it's that insane notion that, like, and the other big piece of it, too, is people will, like, look back at, like, the 70s, and they'll be like, oh, you look back then and just, like, everything was bangers. And it's like, well, no. Like, the past
stuff that,
like,
still has a legacy, that still has relevance.
Like,
it's like a big, sifter. The gold stays, like, and all the dirt falls away.
Or as Randy Savage once said, the cream rises to the top. And, like, so yeah, the passage of time has allowed the good stuff to be preserved and that just allows the mindset to skew towards, oh, well, Led Zeppelin was around in the 70s. That means it's like, no.
Yeah. The 70s are great. Bands. I can name 10 great bands. And it's like, well, yeah, there was more than 10 bands making music. Like, I always say, just go to the dollar section of your record shop and flip through all these artists you've never heard of.
You've never heard of.
At one time, that was music on the radio or being released or whatever. And it's just doesn't...
Buy a Mahogany Rush album, listen to it, and tell me that was a better era of music. Not Rush. Mahogany Rush. Very different things.
So what would you say about the Spice Girls, Andrew? Because I was certainly... I mean, this is, 95 was the first album, 95 or 96. And first of all, the whole era of Spice Girls is like 3 years. It's like 3 years between the release of the first album and Jerry leaving the band.
Spice is 96, and I think Jerry leaves in 98. So 2 years. 96, 78. Yeah. So
there's technically an album in 2000, but that's not the one with the hits that you remember. And then it's
I think
over,
it's just the 4, right?
Yeah,
It's just the 4. I think they do it without Jerry, which. And that's a tough thing as a band too. Like, and that's always like, Pink Floyd is endlessly in those discussions because in '85, Roger Waters was just kind of like, all right, I'm done with Pink Floyd, and I think and so the band's done, and he wanted to move on and do his solo albums, and the other 3 members of the band were like, no, like we're still Pink Floyd, and we'd like to continue being Pink Floyd, and he was like, no, you don't get to do that. I decide what happens to Pink Floyd, and turn in like a whole lawsuit where like a court had to rule like, no, these guys are still allowed to be Pink Floyd without you. And like there was all these things that like they had to like there were like all these weird legal ramifications that came from it that allowed Roger Waters to do certain things, and then Pink Floyd couldn't do certain things too. But I understand that it's tough as a band when like somebody leaves, especially a group like the Spice Girls, where all 5 of you became super famous and iconic. Like, and one of you wants to leave, like, and boy bands ran into the same problem. Like Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or whoever, like if one person wanted to leave, suddenly it was kind of like, oh, are the rest of us still this group? And it's like, does 80% of us still count as the band? And it's kind of like, well, yeah, it probably should, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing.
Yeah, Spice Girls are just like Pink Floyd. That's not where I thought
that's the
comparison.
lesson there. That's the lesson here.
I obviously, being a young boy in the 90s, was too cool to ever say I liked the Spice Girls or buy one of their albums or whatever. But like, I knew the songs. They were, they were bops, even if I wouldn't admit it. But it's certainly something that at best I would listen to, quote unquote, ironically or whatever. And yeah, these days I just care much less about those things. But it is funny to look back, especially, like I said, how short of a time period it actually was. I will say that I did not see this movie, again, too cool. Didn't see it in theaters, that is. But I do remember watching it on VHS. It had to be like shortly after it came out. I watched it at my friend David's house with his sister. And, she was maybe watching it and we just wanted to watch it, just to make fun of it or whatever. But this was so 98. This was, 28 years ago. It's the only time I ever watched it, but there's maybe like 3 or 4 scenes that always stuck with me and I remembered. And I just remember it being like a really silly movie. And I remember telling my dad that we watched this movie called Spice World at my friend's house. And he's like, what is that? And he pulls it up like on the movie channel. And like, it gives you the information and it says that it has nudity. He's like, really? You watch this? And I was like, what? No, there's no nudity. What are you talking about? And then reflecting on it later, I was like, oh yeah, you do see men's butts. I guess that's what the nudity was. But I never corrected my dad. I let him just think I watched a different kind of movie over at my friend's house. But yeah, this was my first time rewatching it since then. And it's kind of hard to find now, which I guess isn't too surprising because the Spice Girls were, anybody that was alive or not at the time remembers the mania of the Spice Girls. But given that there's been very little in the way of like reunion stuff or continuing stuff, or even the Backstreet Boys will still tour, there's nothing like that really for the Spice Girls. Kids, I watched this with my daughter.
Yes, there
and
is.
There is.
They've
what?
gotten back together several times.
Yes, but not like worldwide tour. Like compared to like the Backstreet Boys, it's like I'm confident the Backstreet Boys are making like new fans these days when kids take their parents. Spice Girls have
Are they though? Like
more than the Spice. I think this is such a dumb argument, Andrew, but I think the relevance of the Backstreet Boys in the culture is a little stronger than the Spice Girls because they are working together more, touring more, and are still out there more than the Spice Girls are. I mean, there's been like one-off shows and stuff with the Spice Girls, right? I think there was one tour, but like over 15 years ago. What are you seeing on your research there?
There was a tour in 19 that didn't have Victoria Beckham on it, and then there was a Return of the Spice Girls tour in 07-08 that had all 5 of them, and I'm pretty sure it was a worldwide tour.
Okay, 2008 was a long time ago, Andrew. It was a long time.
2019 was not that long ago.
It doesn't have all of them. I don't think the Spice Girls
had Jerry. It didn't have Posh, and nobody cares about Posh.
Look, I don't know enough about the girls or who's popular or not.
I don't have a dog in this race, but I think the Spice Girls have infinitely more cultural relevance still than the Backstreet Boys do.
You think they have more than the Backstreet Boys? I don't think
Yes.
so.
I think the highs of the Spice Girls are higher than the highs of the Backstreet Boys. Because the Backstreet Boys now are largely just you think anybody is going to a Backstreet Boys show and going like, man, I hope they play stuff from the new album. No, nobody's saying that. Like, come on. Like,
I don't know. I don't know how we got into this comparison to this. I think. Okay, let me say it this way. Again, I watched this movie with my daughter. I don't think she really knows who the Spice Girls are. Like, she might know who they are, but like, if you weren't around at that time, you don't really have an understanding or grasp of their popularity. And when you watch this movie, it may as well be a movie about a fictional band. The movie is made in a world where it assumes everyone knows this is like the biggest band in the world right now, and it's very weird to watch it outside of that context.
where's the Backstreet Boys movie?
I don't know, but it would probably be the same way, Andrew. I'm not really interested in comparing the Spice Girls or Backstreet Boys. Let's say
You did this, not me.
I know. Okay, well, I regret it. I think they've both maybe fallen out of culture harder. I mean, what is anybody's grasp of these bands if they weren't around in the 4 to 5 years they were the biggest band in the world? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, at that point, I don't care.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anyway, I'm saying it's not that surprising the movie's hard to find, because I think only millennials are going to be into it. And of the millennials, only ones that were like big fans are going to be revisiting this movie very often.
I mean, that's never stopped any of these boutique labels from releasing the most niche, ridiculous things on.
Well, I wouldn't say a boutique label releasing it makes it widely available. I'm talking about being streaming.
I mean, a lot of stuff is. I don't know. I think the music is the bigger problem. Probably too expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie's hard to find. That's all I'm trying to say. The movie's hard to watch. But we managed to do so. We're going to talk about it. Let's set the stage here. The movie's released December 26th, 1997. It's made on a budget of $25 million. Worldwide at the box office, it brings in $56 million. Good return on the little budget. Critically, it's not well received. Holds just a 35% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience score, which is interesting for a movie released in 1997 about a girl pop group. Audience score is 45%. It means a not insignificant number of people are logging in years and years after the release of this movie to write their negative review of Spice World. I'd never get over that. Anytime we cover a movie like this, how many people feel compelled to go write their negative review about it. But there it is. Not a critic darling, Andrew.
No, and also not an audience. Like, it's not like there's been no reevaluation by fans, really. And yeah, it just feels like, and it is odd because, like, the notion of a band becoming so popular that they should be in a movie is like a weird holdover that, like, that was the stuff the Beatles did. Like, the Beatles were so popular, people were like, man, they should make a movie. And, like, that no other band since then has really been so popular to warrant something like that, or to at least have somebody follow through on something like that. Like, you've got the Kiss meet the Phantom of the Theme Park or whatever that is, which is like a low budget direct to video. Like, it's monstrous. Don't ever watch it, folks. But it is interesting that, like, a day in the life type movie for a band about the Spice Girls was made just because they were so popular. Like, that's really all that there is to it. It's not like somebody had some artistic statement they wanted to make.
Yeah.
But something like A Hard Day's Night became a relatively iconic thing because it worked. The Beatles were charming personalities that, like, people wanted to watch on screen, and they built in a mild plot that ran through just the greater notion of them prepping for a show that worked. And, people have... So it is interesting to me that, like, this is something that, like, is reserved typically for bands that were as popular as the Beatles. So this speaks just to how popular they were, really. Just
Spice Mania.
Like, the fact they hit, and they hit as hard as they did, like,
And the fact that they're British has to have something to do with this. This is such a British movie.
Oh, very British. But, like, It is interesting that, like, the movie is... They conceive the movie and release it while the band is still popular. Like, this is something that, like, we talked about with Detroit Rock City, where, like, we think part of the issue is that, one, the movie was marketed to the wrong demographic, but two, that by the time the movie is released, the mania of Kiss's reunion had largely worn off, and the kind of, interest was gone. But in this case, this movie is very much still released while the band is very popular. And obviously we'll talk about the box office in a minute, but, like, it did okay. And it was interesting in that. So it's interesting in that regard that, like, they did strike while the iron was hot, and they were able to get it out there before the mania wore off, basically.
I do agree. I feel like there's kind of a spectrum of, like, musical artists in movies. And on one end is, like, Hard Day's Night or this, where it's like they're playing a fictionalized version of themselves. on screen, and that's the whole hook. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you might have something like Madonna, who's making like an earnest attempt at being an actor. And then somewhere in between, you have like Elvis doing movies where, like, yeah, he's doing a movie, but we all recognize it's just because he's Elvis, or Frank Sinatra, where they're kind of playing off their personality, even if they are making a quote unquote real movie. But this era, and shortly after, I mean, there's I can't think of another movie quite like Spice World, but you have like Britney Spears in Crossroads, or Mariah Carey and Glitter, or they made that from Justin to Kelly movie. Like, you had these attempts at like pop stars, you know, cashing in on their popularity or whatever. But in all of those three instances, I think they're somewhere else on the spectrum. It's not quite just look at this artist,
because they're all trying to act. Basically, they're all trying to like play fictional characters in movies.
Yeah,
they're all rather than center the movie on the musician, they're trying to take the musician and kind of like drop them into films. Yeah. And that is always going to be
I don't know the plots of all those movies I just listed, but from Justin to Kelly, like, it's about them singing. You know, it's cashing in on what they're known for doing.
But yeah, like Crossroads is just she's not playing Britney Spears in Crossroads.
No,
like
I wonder if she sings in that movie.
Madonna's not playing Madonna in Evita. Like, she's not doing even though it is a musical. But so you get these things where, like, don't get me wrong.
Who is Madonna playing in Evita?
I couldn't tell you. But it's just interesting because, like, they capitalize, but the idea is capitalize on it. And I guess in those instances, it was a singular star that they were like, oh, let's put them into movies. Whereas with the Spice Girls, it's a group. Like, it was the group that was popular. And so in that regard, you have to approach it a little bit different. Like the Beatles. The Beatles were popular. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, each individual member has their own following. We all know who the best one is. It's George Harrison. But
is George your favorite? I was about to ask you who your favorite Beatle is, Andrew.
Of course he is. He's got the best solo albums. But like, in that regard, just the point is the band is the popular thing. So the mindset was, okay, we have to do something that the band features in. So in that regard, you can't take like all four members. It's harder to take all four members of a band and find some sort of fictional script that, you know, you can put all four of them in. And in those cases, they're like, well, if the band's popular, just make it a movie about the band. Whereas with Britney Spears or Justin Timberlake or whoever, you can just be like, you can play, even though Justin Timberlake did come from NSYNC, like, you can take one person and put them into a movie a lot easier than you could take a group of 5 people.
Let's take a look at the creative team here. The movie is written by Kim Fuller, and there is a story credit with the Spice Girls. So apparently they came up with the concept together, but Kim Fuller gets sole writing credit. Kim Fuller is mostly a writer for television, tons of stuff. I think the Tracy Ullman Show might be the biggest thing that I saw in their credits, but the other half of their career is collaborating with their brother, Simon Fuller, who is the manager of a number of pop groups, including Spice Girls, creator of multiple television shows, probably most notably American Idol. So this movie's creative team spawns out of the pop music Spice Girls machine. They didn't really go anywhere. Out of house is the term I was about to say. They kept it in house. What's the opposite of in house, Andrew? Out of house? They didn't go out of house. They didn't outsource the writing. Thank you. They kept it in the family to get this thing off the ground. Which I think it makes sense that they were able to get this out in 1997 versus trying to go through like a more traditional studio hire writer, whatever. They kind of just went with the talent they had on board already.
Yeah, they found something to get it done quick. Although I do find it very, very funny that Kim Fuller is also the writer from Justin to Kelly.
That is funny.
Full on. That's very, very funny. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, not a lot here. The television career, a little bit more. Worked on the Tracy Ullman Show, various forms, working with Tracy Ullman. Then started working on, you know, like LA 7 and Hollywood 7 and Viva S Club 7, like all that S Club stuff that became a big thing. That was all through Simon Fuller, I'm guessing. And Simon Fuller is the creator of the Idols format, the Idols, you know, shows, which eventually birthed American Idol, things like that. So, like, this is definitely a pop music machine pipeline at work here for sure.
The movie is directed by Bob Spears, also a long history of working in TV. In fact, they have directed 3 feature films. 2 of them released the same year. Spice World releases the same year as That Darn Cat. Remember that weird remake of the old show they did? I know nothing about the movie except for like the poster, and it's like spiral background is always stuck in my brain. Other than those 2 movies, in 2001 released a movie called Kevin of the North, which is a comedy starring Leslie Nielsen, Natasha Henstridge, and Skeet Ulrich. Gosh, those 3,
There was a time, man.
Their peak popularity in the 90s, and then by 2001, they're in a movie called Kevin in the North, which is a comedy about like the Iditarod race. Like what? It's sad, but part of me a very dark part of me wants to actually look at that movie and see what it's all about. But it's not surprising this man hasn't directed hasn't directed another movie after those 3.
He's also dead. But
well, he didn't die in like 2002.
He died in 2008. So
okay, well, maybe he was working on the next big thing when he died, but there's a solid 7 years.
It looked like it was
another movie.
It was a lot of television that he worked on, and it looks like he did do some stuff, some later stuff in television there as well. But he just this prolific television career, stuff like Dad's Army, which was a very prolific British television show. Worked on Fawlty Towers, which was one of John Cleese's great comedies. Post Monty Python, before John Cleese kind of went off the deep end. I still love Fawlty Towers. It's one of those things that I watch it, but I always have that tinge in the back of my brain of like, should you though? Should you? This prolific television career, and then ultimately, like you said, only directs a few films, including 2 out the same year, which is wild. I don't remember. I'm curious how he gets involved, because like looking at his career, I don't really see anything that like points to him doing this movie. Like outside, maybe it feels like maybe it was kind of like a friend of a friend of a friend was just like, oh yeah, this guy's good. He does all this stuff and he comes in and does this. But I don't know. Yeah, like you said, a very limited film career. And then unfortunately it passes away just over a decade after this. So it is but yeah, some real interesting stuff buried in this filmography here, though. Some pretty fun British comedies. So like I would say he's not a lightweight when it comes to British comedy. Like between Dad's Army, Are You Being Served, Fawlty Towers, absolutely fabulous. Like this is
and this movie kind of is more of like a variety TV show than it is a movie.
And so I can see why they could be like, hey, this guy's got quite the resume here. And like he even worked with like Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie on some of their shows, which is probably why Hugh Laurie has a cameo here. But like, yeah, this is it's a deceptive career in a lot of ways. Where like if you're an American, not to step all over Americans again, but most of what he's done is British comedy television, and so you're not really going to have a frame of reference for that. But some really good stuff mixed in here.
R.I.P. Bob Spears. R.I.P. Leslie Nielsen. Andrew, it's time that we talk about this movie, everything we liked, all the positives about Spice World. Andrew, you ready?
Yeah.
The Spice Girls are an international pop group sensation, and while on tour, they get into some wacky adventures. And that's it. That's all I wrote down for a synopsis, because there's not really a plot to this movie. It's just a series of wacky things happening. So kind of towards the end, there's a big, will they make this big show? But that's certainly not the driving force of the entire film. So it would be silly for me just to list out every little side adventure and gag that they go on. There's a few threads that run throughout the movie. We can cover that when we talk about the cast. And that's what we'll be doing right now, talking about the cast of this film, starting with the high point, best casting, best performance of the movie, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance, and we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. So, Andrew, kick us off. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Spice World?
I will be going with Richard E. Grant as Clifford, the band's manager throughout most of the proceedings of the film. Richard Grant is a very funny man. He has a very like deceiving, like almost villainous look most of the time, but I've always enjoyed watching him and the stuff that he's in. I think he is very, very funny, and I think kind of the role he fits here, which is as the girl's manager, but he the whole movie he's like on their bus making these like announcements in the most ominous voice over the PA, and it like drives the girls kind of nuts. But just his place here, but then he's also still super like protective of the girls, and like when they've got like film pitches coming, he's the one that's like interfering and being like, no, these sound horrible. But just the level that he plays throughout this movie, I think he adds, one, some humor, two, I wouldn't go quite as far as to say it's gravitas, because Richard E. Grant is good, but he's not like, there's other people in this movie adding gravitas, we'll get to them. But I think he adds a through line and adds some good comedy bits as well. Like, I think his delivery and his reactions to things are very, very funny. And in that regard, I will be going with Richard E. Grant as Clifford. You all may remember him as Xander Rice from Logan.
Who?
Xander Rice.
Xander Rice?
Yeah.
From Logan. What does he do there?
He's the bad guy. And he looks just like this, so I don't know how you don't recognize him.
That doesn't narrow it down. Let me look at a picture.
I think he's the creator of X-23.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He is the creator of X-23 and... Wait, is 23... Which one's 23? 23 is...
The girl.
The girl. Which one's... Is it 24? That's Hugh Jackman?
Boring.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he has that weird, like, paternal relationship. Okay, yes. Okay, we're on board. Yeah, anyway, Andrew, I agree. Richard E. Grant also getting my Mark Strong Award for Spice World. The dude is putting in some work. He he's kind of an anchor for this movie. I mean, the Spice Girls, obviously, is a through line there, too. But there's all these branching storylines of, like, people trying to take the Spice Girls down and the evil record label and the movie being pitched about him, and they all flow through him. And so, but for that reason, he has a lot of heavy lifting to do. But this performance reminds me a lot about another actor in this movie in a different movie. It reminds me a lot of Alan Cumming in Josie and the Pussycats. But Alan Cumming is also in this movie doing something else, which makes it kind of funny. But he's putting in that kind of performance. I got to give him Mark Strong Awards for the amount of effort that he puts into it. I think it's genuinely funny. I love his costuming, the way he's always dressed in like monochromatic, as friend of the show, my wife put it. Just a solid like a green suit or purple or whatever color. It just seems to change from scene to scene. Anyway, it's great. Dude's putting in the work, and gotta respect him for that. Gotta tip him the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, we of course need to talk about the Spice Girls, okay? And I think we can maybe just talk about them all together. You have Victoria Adams as Posh Spice, Victoria Beckham, Mel B as Scary Spice, Emma Bunton as Baby Spice, Mel C as Sporty Spice, and Jerry Halliwell as Ginger Spice. They are always together. You can't say they all blend together because quite famously they all have their own distinct gimmick and personality. You probably know what it is if you're listening to this. I don't think we need to go through it. But what I want to say about the girls is that it's not like you watch this movie and you go, oh, wow, not only can they sing, but they can act as well. Because that's not what the movie is asking of them. They are just playing these heightened versions of themselves. And what I enjoy most about their performance and about the writing of this movie in general is that they're making fun of themselves, or at the very least, they have a sense of humor about it, not taking it too seriously. They don't act like they're the most important band in the world, even though, like, in the story of this movie, they are. But they often make jokes about, like, their intelligence or being ditzy or just being way into whatever gimmick it is that they have. And there's a moment where they're all, like, dressed up as each other and mocking the one they're dressed up as, kind of swapping gimmicks or whatever. It's a lot of fun. For as much as we know how these groups kind of get quote unquote created and formulated and thrown together, it's not like they're childhood best friends that grew up singing together. You do get the sense that, at least maybe for a time, they were genuinely just having a great time together. I'm no Spice Girls expert. I don't know all the drama behind the scenes, but obviously it imploded at some point. But you don't get any of that in this movie. It seems like about as genuine of like a friendship as you can get, and I'll just say it all stays pretty light, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you get, everybody is playing to their type pretty hard. They're all, nobody's really going above and beyond outside of that. But it's the same kind of thing where, like, but that's not what anybody's expecting. Like, nobody wants this movie to be the acting showcase for the Spice Girls to show their range. That's not, it's like Hard Day's Night. Like, some of the guys of the Beatles are capable of showing some range in acting, but like when you're watching Hard Day's Night, you're not there to watch them do that. You're there to watch them be the Beatles. And here is very similar. You're here to see them be the Spice Girls. So in that regard, they're all playing exactly how they need to be in this movie, as far as living within the kind of personas that they played within the band. And there's a little room. There's some tension. They do run with that a little bit, but overall, I think everybody here is doing exactly what's being asked of them. Do some of them have range beyond that? Sure. I think some of them have shown that since. But for the purpose of this film, they're all playing to what the audience wants.
I wonder what would have been like the best gimmick to get and the worst gimmick. Like you line these girls up.
I think Baby would be the worst.
I was going to say Baby or Sporty, because Baby's like, well...
I think Baby would be worse. Like,
okay.
I think Baby would be worse than Sporty.
Expand on that, Andrew.
I think having to pretend to basically be a baby the whole time is worse than pretending to be Sporty the whole time.
It's also
simple.
like it's how do you age out of being Baby Spice? Like that's, you can't maintain that forever. But similarly, Sporty Spice, like your whole gimmick is like being fit and athletic. It's like, well, damn, I gotta keep this up. I gotta like always look like I got my stuff together. Posh is probably
it's like
the
that
easiest.
bit in The Naked Gun about now you're the fit prisoner and you got to stay fit, man. No more carbs ever. Like
exactly. Posh Spice is easy. I mean, you just got to be into your clothes. What is
you're good.
What is I mean, I just saw this movie and I still can't tell you what is Ginger Spice. Is it just being a redhead? What is her deal, Andrew?
Hey, it's a job, man.
It's a full-time gig.
I don't know.
All right, Andrew. There's a few more, like, I think, characters we can talk about, and then there's just an insane amount of cameos that maybe we'll just save for the scenes. We have Claire Rushbrook as Deborah, who is the girl's assistant. Most of her scenes are with Clifford, their manager, and while Clifford is usually quick to fly off the handle and scream at the girls and try to keep them in line, Claire is kind of a balance that's a little more reasonable with them, and kind of the bridge between the manager and the girls, and just kind of providing a softer touch. And she does a good job.
I agree.
I mentioned Alan Cumming earlier. He's trying to shoot a documentary, kind of like a gotcha style documentary about the girls and catch them in their worst light. And he just kind of pops in throughout the movie, again, trying to do that. And a few comedic scenes are really like when he's interviewing those little kids and not letting them get a word in because he's trying to just, again, make the Spice Girls look bad. But I'm always happy to see Alan Cumming, alum of the show. Well, of course, we mentioned Josie and the Pussycats. I might have even popped up elsewhere, but the dude is...
Any X-Men stuff? No, we've never covered any of the X-Men stuff he's in.
Right, he's only in 2, right? Yeah, just 2.
Well, he will be in Avengers Doomsday, but that's
wild.
That isn't out yet. I just that's he's. I remember when they announced that this is off topic, which we never do on this show, but they announced Stewart and McKellen and all them were coming back for Days of Future Past. And they were all just like, wow, how cool. Like, how cool to get to come back and do this again. Did you ever think this would happen? And I'm like, just you wait. 11 years later, they're going to ask you to do it again. They're going to make you do this till you're 90. And in those cases of those two, they're getting pretty close.
Yeah, almost literally at this point. My God.
How old is Patrick Stewart? He's at least in his 80s. He's 85. So Stewart's 85 and McKellen is 86. So when that movie comes out, they will be towards 90. And Deadpool better make a joke about it at least once.
Alan Cumming is great, though.
Yes, always great. Always a pleasure. Alan Cumming. I just wanted to say he was in Mystery Men, but I think I confused him with Paul Rubens. But how dare I? Yeah, he's in the Flintstones sequel, but he's not in the original Flintstones, which we covered. Did we cover the original Flintstones? Am I losing my mind?
We did cover the original Flintstones. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because Kyle MacLachlan's in it, and that was my excuse to talk about Kyle MacLachlan. He's in a bunch of the Spy Kids movies. He's in Son of the Mask, which somehow we avoided. I don't know how we pulled that off, but we somehow escaped the
so far,
circle
Andrew.
of the Son of the Mask. Oh, God. He is in Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, which is a wonderful movie if you've never seen it. And then he's also in GoldenEye. I don't know if I'm sure I talked about us all. I'm certain I talked about all this on Josie and the Pussycats. Well, actually, no, you didn't talk about anything on Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah, you did that without me. But hey, there's a great
that's what you get for
transition
taking
right
a break.
there. Andrew, speaking of 007, Roger Moore is in this movie, and casting that I love. Known as the
so
Chief.
Ridiculous.
He's the head of the record label, which is like a super over-the-top evil version of this suit. And I mean, especially the first time you see him, you're like, oh, I get it. It's James Bond playing Blofeld. Like, he's in this ominous bad guy lair. He's got a cat that he's stroking. But as the movie goes on, the animal that he's holding will change. I think it's a bunny at one point, and then it's like a little baby pig that he's feeding, but he always has
it's like, because it's
small
a cat
animal.
originally. I think it's a cat to start with to do the Blofeld thing, and then it just keeps progressively going through weirder and weirder things.
It's one of those things that is funny just because it's Roger Moore, just because it's a famous James Bond.
It's Bond.
Just funny to have him in this role. He probably shot for, I don't know, what do you think? 3 days max, Andrew?
Not
yeah,
even 3 days. I like this. I mean, this probably took 4 hours.
He has no scenes with anyone else. It's just him in this room.
It's literally in a room by himself, just
with a small animal, to be fair. But
just hand him different animals, give him some cards. Like, don't even got to learn these lines. He's that was pretty funny. He's definitely here to just punch up the cast. And I don't know if it's gravitas, but it's certainly pretty funny to see him in a role like this.
We have Naoko Mori as Nicola, who's the girl's best friend. This is a character that, like, maybe the second time they showed up, I'm like, did I miss something? Who is this? And
she's just their friend.
She's just a friend of the Spice Girls who is pregnant, and we got to establish that because, of course, she's gonna have the baby by the end of the movie. It really kind of helps set the tone of this thing. I guess we can talk about Meatloaf. He's kind of a real character. He's the bus driver, so we see him pop in throughout the movie. Maybe just a big build up to one great joke, but you know what? They land that joke. We'll save it for when we talk about scenes. Alum of the show talked about him a couple weeks ago on Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny.
Tenacious D. Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't realize Meatloaf was in this movie, but yeah, he's here for one gag, and it's a good gag. Don't misunderstand me, but it's all he's here for. I guarantee you. That's literally it. Somebody was like, "Hey, what if we got Meatloaf to make a I won't do that joke?" And they were like, "Do it."
Andrew, I've seen a lot of cameos here. Any other character you think we need to dive into, or should we talk about scenes?
I want to mention Barry Humphries and Jason Fleming, who play Kevin McMaxford and his assistant Brad. And I think it's Richard O'Brien who plays their kind of deceptive agent Damien. These are the three men who work for some newspaper that are trying to like create tension and like plant stories in the media about tension within the Spice Girls because they know it's going to sell papers. Basically, they're the National Enquirer. That's what they are. But Barry Humphries is playing your typical like gross, like Roger Ailes, Rupert Murdoch type, just newspaper tycoon, kind of greasy, sleazy. I guess I shouldn't mention those guys necessarily, but just a very uncouth person with very unnoble intentions. Jason Fleming plays his kind of ridiculous assistant who just kind of goes along with whatever he says. And then Richard O'Brien, actually, oddly, also in the Rocky Horror Picture Show with Meatloaf, also co-wrote the Rocky Horror Picture Show, plays their kind of like deceptive photographer who's kind of tasked with getting compromising photos of the Spice Girls, trying to seed tension and everything within their group. They're all kind of together for the most part, so I can kind of lump them in that way. But they're pretty funny. They're some of my favorite scenes, so I'll probably talk about them as well. And then I'll also shout out George Wendt and Mark McKinney, who are like Hollywood executives or just like a film production group that keep trying to pitch Spice Girl movies the whole movie. Like they're trying to pitch Richard Grant on movies. And it was wild to me because George Wendt, obviously from Cheers and a variety of other things, and Mark McKinney from Kids in the Hall. It just felt like a really odd choice. It's like, hey, we need two Americans in this movie. There we go. We get a guy from Cheers and a guy from Kids in the Hall. It's like, all right, I guess. That's how you represent Hollywood right there. That's the formula. And so, but yeah, and then obviously the cameos, they're endless. It's Elton John, it's Elvis Costello, it's Bob Geldof, it's Bob Hoskins, it's Hugh Laurie as Hercule Poirot, Stephen Fry. It's ridiculous. The cameos in this movie are genuinely out of control, but we'll talk about some of those more later.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about the scenes of this movie. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to start with the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene in Spice World?
I will actually be referencing the newspaper scenes that I just referenced. There's a scene with these guys there's two scenes with these guys. So, but I'll shout out the first one that just made me laugh because. So you've got McMaxford, who's this media tycoon who's trying to sell papers, and him and Brad, his assistant, are brainstorming how they sell papers with the Spice Girls because they're everywhere, they're so popular. And then they have this breakthrough that like the key is to like Spice Girls break up, so they want the kind of evidence to figure that out. But the bit that made me laugh so much, and I still don't know why it makes me laugh, and I don't even know why it's here, is that when they like hatch their diabolical plan and they figure it out. It cuts back to Jason Fleming's character, and all of a sudden, in the middle of this office room, it's raining on him. And I was just so confused. I was like, wait. I legitimately, rewinded the movie, because I was like, why did this happen? And I cut back, and it's not explained. It is never mentioned again. It is not treated as if it's strange. He just randomly cuts back to this guy's assistant. It's not raining on him. It's just raining on the assistant, and I have no idea why, but it is unquestionably the loudest I laughed watching this movie because it was just such an absurd turn that I was like, I don't know what's happening, but if the movie is just 90 minutes of this, okay, let's go.
That's exactly how I felt, and basically around the same time, because I think it's that same scene. I might have texted you this. I wasn't expecting to snort laugh watching this movie, but right. Whenever he's talking to his assistant and he's like, "Who cares if the Spice Girls get to number 1 again, or climb to the top of Mount Everest on an ostrich, or if they find a cure for deja vu?" The assistant goes, "Psh, not me." And then they play the scene again. Or if they find a cure for deja vu, "Psh, not me." And then looks at the camera they just repeat. Exactly. I'm like. Beautiful. 100%. It's such a dumb, obvious joke, but I mean, I've said it, anytime, you're manipulating, the editing process of film to make your joke or whatever, that's always gonna get me. It's that dumb, slapstick's not the right word, but, Naked Gun style humor, or just very British humor, as we've said, everything with these guys, I love, they work for a newspaper, and they'll do the classic spinning newspaper transition, but it's never actually what's happening. It's not just transition. We see a newspaper spinning and then a dagger hits it and pins it to the wall. And you realize it was actually a spinning newspaper, in the world of the movie. Or there's a news anchor spins onto the screen, and then he hits the top of the TV and makes it stop spinning. And we pull back and realize it was just what was actually happening on his TV. So dumb, so funny. Andrew, I guess I'll just say it, like hashtag PP and all. I enjoy a lot of the stuff like the Spice Girls do here and how they're used and stuff. But the movie they built around them, I like the most. My favorite scenes aren't the ones focused on the Spice Girls. It's these threads that they weave in and out. And I don't want to make it sound too, because tons of respect to the Spice Girls for having, like I said, the sense of humor about themselves and the jokes they make. And I do like a lot of their wild segments. But I think it was so smart to weave, like 5 stories throughout and these different gags to help elevate this movie. And that's what these guys are doing. They are like elevating the film.
Yeah, and like this was the stuff where like, yeah, like you said, it feels very backhanded, but like, and I think I even texted you this and like hashtag PP, but it's like when you're actually letting like comedians and actors just like have these scenes, because like that newspaper stuff is all in a bubble. It's just those guys in a room.
Yeah.
They never interact with anybody else in the movie. Damien does to an extent, but like Jason Fleming and the guy that plays McMaxford, like they never interface with the rest of the people. So it truly feels like, in a way, I was like, oh, you basically just put these guys in a room with a camera, and I feel like them and the director just like riffed on a bunch of endless jokes and just finally figured out the ones that work. Like I love that at the end of the scene where it's raining on him and he's like, and I'll take the Spice Girls down and I'll find someone who is like, and who's going to help me do it? And the guy's like, I'll find someone. But while it's raining on him, then he finally goes, I just wish you wouldn't get so upset. And it's just these ridiculous, like, non sequiturs, but, like, but a lot of the exterior stuff is all stuff that's, like, in a vacuum kind of by itself. Like, it's relating to the film that's ongoing, and sometimes it can, like, I don't think George Wendt and Mark McKinney, they largely just interface with Richard E. Grant. They don't really get to the band until later, if at all. I don't really remember. But, like, so
a lot of people in this movie did not meet each other. Like, I can guarantee that.
Right. Like, they were shooting it, obviously, I presume, very quickly, very, real slap and dash, which is also why television directors tend to be kind of good for that, because television directors are a lot more used to a quicker schedule. You got to turn television episodes around pretty quick. But yeah, like, some of this stuff is just so funny, because it's these guys, in this case, it's just comedy actors all riffing off of each other and having a blast doing it. And you can look through this cast, and a lot of these people are alums of British comedy shows, and so that sensibility and that wit shines through. So even if the Spice Girls are kind of not necessarily fairly kind of locked into being the Spice Girls, it was a smart decision, I think, to kind of surround that with a lot of like comedy stalwarts that were able to inject some real absurdity into the proceedings. And I think the movie is better for it. But these scenes specifically with McMaxford and Brad and then ultimately Damien are some of my favorites. And I'll talk about their next scene in a little bit. But on to you, Chris.
Andrew, I have to go with what's essentially the finale of this movie, because there's a lot of jokes packed into it. And we it's the closest we get to like these different threads converging. It's not like every single thread coming together, but these two guys that have been pitching the movie throughout the movie finally pitch like the big finale. And as they're pitching it, we see it play out in the reality of the movie. So we're cutting back and forth to them pitching this exciting moment where the Spice Girls are rushing to finally make their show in time. And we're seeing the Spice Girls, kind of act that stuff out. Like there's this moment where they're on their final. This is so stupid. They're on the bus making their way to the show, and there's a cameo in this movie by the royal family, and all they do is drive by the what is that royal family building, Andrew? It's not their house. What is that?
Buckingham Palace.
They drive by Buckingham Palace, and they're like, "Oh, look, I can see the Queen. I can see her high," and they wave out the window, and there's like a shot of Buckingham Palace, but you never see any of the royal family like on screen. But as they're pitching the movie, they talk about them seeing the royal family. And then they talk about how they have this very exciting bus jump. Their bus has to make their way over a drawbridge as it's being raised up. And their manager is like, that's expensive. And they're like, well, not necessarily. And we see the scene play out, and it's an obvious obvious little toy bus jumping over a little tiny miniature bridge in the most it's like Team America made this joke a lot, where it's just an obvious little toy thing, but it's being played as a very dramatic action scene. That's one of the scenes that stuck with me for these past 30 years or whatever. I remember that little toy bus just being absolutely hilarious. Really like that gag. He mentioned that, of course, they discovered the bomb, and the girls look under the bus, and there's a big bomb on the bus. It's great. It's silly. It's wacky. It's everything I've enjoyed this movie, like coming to a head. I like how these storylines converge, and then it ends with them saying, and then the girls make it just in time and break through that door right there. And there's this big long pause. They don't break in. He's like, what are you saying? They said they'd make it here. Then the girls make it there to the show, and they put on, I think we see one song, and then hit credits. Like, we're done. We're out of here. But I like that that sort of rushed energy that the scene brings, and the silly comedy of seeing these things play out as they are pitched. I thought it was a good I'm having trouble finding words today, Andrew. A good excuse, a good strategy, what a good method, a good system,
Good mechanism.
a good mechanism for getting the jokes into the movie. Yeah, thanks. That's a good one.
Yeah, it is a creative way to do it, because you're able to jam in a bunch of just ridiculous, kind of classic finale moments and just kind of burn through them in a big way without having to actually you don't have to actually build any of it. You can just have, it's just writers riffing, and it plays, and it works really, really well. So no, I agree. I think this is the way they're just pitching it in real time, and it's happening. It's very, very funny. And this is a good pick. I mean, the whole movie is about this concert at Royal Albert Hall, I think it is, which is a very iconic British venue. And it's that's the whole thing. And so all of this is just like the last minute, obstacles thrown in the way. And I think this is a relatively clever way to just kind of burn through a lot of that to kind of give it some absurdity. Because like I said, this whole movie's kind of absurd. Like, that's the thing. I kind of wish it was almost more absurd.
Yeah.
And it leaned into that weird style of like British comedy even more. But I guess there was this idea that maybe they kind of were like, we got to play to everybody. And the problem when you play to everybody is you play to nobody. But this whole thing just comes off very, very funny. And it is a good way to do it.
I mean, it does get absurd, Andrew. There's a moment where the girls have to get off the bus in the middle of the night and go to the woods to use the restroom because all the toilets are broken on the bus. And whenever the bus driver, played by Meatloaf, is asked, "Oh, can't you take care of it?" he replies, "Listen, I love these girls, and I'll do anything for them, but I won't do that." It's great. It's like the whole
only reason this
Meatloaf
man is in this movie.
Yeah.
There's no other reason he's here. I love Meatloaf. I love seeing him around. Rest in peace, but won't see him around anymore. But he is
R.I.P. I forgot. I don't think we said R.I.P. on Tenacious D. I forgot that he passed away.
I mean, Meatloaf will live forever in a way. Same with Ronnie James Dio. But
Sure.
it's but I'm never gonna be sad to see Meatloaf on my screen ever.
Well, when the girls go into the woods, Andrew, they come across an alien spaceship that is landing.
Because
with
of course they do.
Weirdest looking. I'm fascinated by the choices that went into this because they're they're alien suits that were made for this movie. But they have, I don't know. They're weird and gross looking. I just love that they speak kind of this gibberish, but the girls just we get subtitles, but the girls just have a conversation with them as if they understand their language. It's just so dumb, but funny in that way that I like. And then during their final concert, there's all these shots of people enjoying the show, including these aliens on their home planet with Spice Girls shirts, rocking out to the show. It is
wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is silly.
I'm into it. And again, that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I want the movie to do more of this. I want the movie to lean in and have as much ridiculous things as it possibly can. But so I will talk about the other scene with McMaxford, because I think he's really only in 2 scenes. I don't think he's in anything else. But it's my scene because they finally find a guy they think is going to help them figure this out. And like the guy's selling him, and he's like, he got the Fergie toe sucking pictures. If you want to see Bill Clinton tucking his t-shirt into his underwear, he can do that too. And he's like, well, where is this guy? And then he just appears, and he's just like, I'm here. And he just like walks out of the wall, and he's like, how do we know you're any good? And he hands him like a photo of him sniffing his socks before he put them on that morning, him picking his nose in the elevator that morning. Like, it's and the whole time he's doing this, he's just like, he's good. And then he's like, you behind the bike shed with some girl when you were 12? And he's like, he's very good. Like, he's not at all like upset that he's taken these photos, deeply invading his privacy. No wondering how he did any of this or how he knew to take a picture of him when he was 12. Just, he's good. He's very good. Good. That's the kind of stupid gags that I really, really love. So that one was really, really funny. And like I said, I don't know if we see those guys the rest of the movie. The whole McMaxford thing is like handled off screen. Like he gets busted in a jacuzzi scandal or something like that. But it is it's, I can't deny that it was funny.
Yeah,
Made me
it's
laugh,
good.
man.
It's silly. There's so many. It's hard to talk about because the movie is just bounces from I don't know,
Scene
set
to
piece,
scene,
gag.
like,
Yeah.
There's just, yeah.
Andrew, was this a bit part or a cameo? Dominic West is the photographer for these girls during a photo shoot. Alum of the show, Dominic West. He played Jigsaw in Punisher Warzone. A known actor, but 1997, I don't know how big he was. So what do you think, Andrew? Small part or cameo?
I don't think it's a cameo. I don't think he's famous enough for it to be a cameo. I don't mean to be rude, but he's also an alum of the show from playing Kurt Cuddy in Rockstar. So if I had a nickel
Right.
for every movie he appeared in Fake Band Month and Real Band Month, I'd have 2 nickels. But yeah, and I like watched that and was just like, wait, is that it? Could it be? It is. Like, I was like, just turned into Michael Cole for a second. But it's I just don't. Is he popular in '97?
I don't think so.
Like,
He's just.
I don't think he's
look, Ash, he's not that popular now. Like, he's not a huge name, but like, he just has a very distinct face to me. I recognize him right away, and I was like, well, that's the scene's over. Like, he didn't really get to do anything, but good for you, getting the work back in the day. I love, like I said, I love the girls making fun of themselves. At one point, Jerry said, I think it's Jerry. Is Jerry's thing that she's blonde? Like, I think there's a lot of blonde jokes, even though she's obviously a redhead. She says, haven't you ever heard of the word compromisation instead of compromise?
strategery.
I like, they're at this, big fancy party, but one of them says, I hate these parties. Everyone dresses so over the top. And like 5 girls dressed like the Spice Girls, like walk by as she's saying that. Pretty good. It's also at that party that one of the girls says, I can't remember the question that she was asked, but she wants to give an emphatic yes. And she says, well, is the Pope Catholic? And then like the headline is, the Spice Girls have cast doubt on the religious inclinations of the Pope.
That was so good. I loved it too much.
Good. Yeah, I like, I love the tone of this movie. Like, I'm not going to tell you, look, we're looking at a hidden gem here, or revival, or a movie that needs to be reevaluated. But of all the things a Spice Girls movie could have been, of all the things that like a movie about a pop band could have been, this is one of the best ways you could go with it. Just a big, like I said, a big variety TV show with a bunch of stupid, fun British comedy in it.
Yeah, I mean, that really, like, that's ultimately the way you go with it. I think, like it sounds backhanded, but I really don't mean it to be that way. But just like, nobody is going to watch this, like I said, to be like the acting showcase for the Spice Girls.
Sure.
That's not what people are wanting here. Like, they want to see the Spice Girls in like wacky, zany adventures. And I think this movie delivers on that. Mixes in enough other kind of fun stuff to really kind of keep it interesting, keep it fun. And I think anybody that were fans of the Spice Girls, I think definitely came away satisfied, I would hope.
A couple things we wrap up here, Andrew. Meatloaf probably takes the cake for cameo for that one big joke. But I love there's a scene. I trying to remember who's at the bar. I think it's maybe the girl's assistant. And Elvis Costello is the bartender. He's like, "Oh, what'll it be?"
Yep.
And she orders the shot, and he goes to make it, and she goes, "Wait a minute, can you make it a double?" Like, I was almost like she was recognizing him, but she's just changing her order. It's very good. At one point, one of the girls puts on a disguise, goes into a phone booth, comes out as Bob Hoskins. Still talks like the Spice Girl, but it's Bob Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins, yeah.
Is that during the Spice Force 5 segment? Yeah, I got a question for you, Andrew. There's this big segment where they talk about Spice Force 5, and it's casting these girls in a TV show where each of them has like a specialty, and they're all, they're like a team of 5 girls that are like special agents. But I can't help but think of Fox Force 5, which is the fake TV show from Pulp Fiction, the pilot she shot that didn't get picked up. And I wouldn't feel like Spice Girls or Spice World would be referencing a joke in Pulp Fiction. Are they both based on something real? Is there a Force 5 type show that happened in real life? Is this a coincidence? What's happening here, Andrew?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I don't know. I truly don't. Like,
do you think it's a Pulp Fiction reference?
Sure. Good question as anything else.
Fox is a bunch of foxy chicks. Force because we're a force to be reckoned with, and 5 because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. It's one of my favorite lines in that movie.
10 out of 10. Proper information. I like the gag with Bob Geldof where like his hair is just down and I think it's Scary Spice that's just like, oh, we can do something about that. So it cuts away to something else, then it cuts back, and she's done Bob Geldof's hair in the most ridiculous way possible.
He's got the spacer, her space buns.
Yeah, he does. And he's like, you sure about this, basically? And she's like, yep.
It's good. You know what was wonderful, Andrew? There's I guess you would call it a mid-credit scene, but credit starts, we have this big oneer of like the studio lot where we are just kind of panning through the parking lot and everyone is out of character talking about their lines, saying, "Oh, I liked you in that other thing you're in," and the Spice Girls walk through. And then eventually the girls notice the camera. They all talk directly to camera. They talk about the people they see like in the movie theater. And then they even talk about people watching on home video, which I appreciated because I was watching it at home. She's like, "Oh, some people will be watching this later at home," and they talk about them. And then it ends with them going, "Wait a minute, what about the bomb on the bus?" And there's a big explosion off screen, and that's it. Really impressive because it seems to be genuinely one shot to get all those people and their lines in one shot and these girls to feel like they're riffing on the crowd, even though they're probably reading written lines. I thought that was a pretty fun way to end the movie.
I think so. Yeah. Their friend does eventually have her baby. That does happen. I don't know if we want to talk about that. It does happen.
Yeah.
But I do love the one thing that I think is funny is that the second unit on this movie, 90% of their job was to drive that bus around London and shoot footage of it. Like, because there's so many establishing shots that are just that bus driving through the streets, but like you never see anybody that's on the bus when that happens. And so I'm like, there's literally a whole crew that we're just like, we're giving you the bus, we're giving you a camera, we just need you to literally drive this bus around the entirety of London and film it the whole time. And people were paid money to do that because it's important.
Dude, I didn't mention maybe my favorite subtle joke in the movie. Subtle's not the right word, but you'll understand what I mean in a minute. The interior of the bus is the size of a building.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Like they walk on the bus and then we see a shot inside and it's like they each have their own room. There's a big like fireman's pole. There's multiple rooms. Like I thought that was really funny. That was really good.
Real Doctor Who situation there.
Andrew, there's just 1 week left in Real Bands Month. How does this keep happening? It's almost time for a brand new theme. These things are flying by. I know you're excited about next week, Andrew. We are talking about the film Head, which obviously is a movie about the monkeys. I have not watched the movie yet at the time of this recording. I did. I don't remember if it was for this month or previously, but I did read about why the movie is called Head, which is a reference that no one today will understand, but very of the time. But we'll cover that on the episode. I know you're excited for me to see this movie because I think you emphatically think I will not enjoy it. So that seems to be your take here. But I don't know. I'm excited. I guess we'll be testing out the old hashtag PP mindset next week.
We will. The only reason I think that is because I know you don't particularly care for some of David Lynch's more, will be tactful and say esoteric films that venture into the weirdness with the nonlinear story. Not necessarily just the nonlinear storytelling, but almost the nonsensical storytelling where things just change halfway through and suddenly we're in a whole different world and suddenly, and Head is just this weird, like, fever dream. And there's this whole commentary that is intended about it. The fact that it's co-written by Jack Nicholson is just so funny to me. Like, just on a base level of like, there is a movie starring the monkeys co-written by Jack Nicholson. That's a truthful statement.
Right.
It just feels like a weird thing to say. So, I am very much looking forward to it. And don't misunderstand me. If you don't care, for that film, don't let that stop you from watching the other movies in that BBS Productions box set, because they're not like this one.
Okay, fair enough.
King of Marvin Gardens and The Last Picture Show especially.
We'll be diving into that next week, but right now it is time to enter AA. It's time for Ask Andrew, the part of the show where I ask you anything I want and you have to answer it. Andrew, I'm going to be very selfish this week and ask you a question just as an excuse for me to give you the answer that I've already thought of. So I'm going to give you the very
Chris,
broad...
This is not AC. This is AA.
I'm asking you, and I'm giving an answer even without being asked. But I want to know what you come up with. It's a very, very broad question here. It's very simple. It's probably a concept we've discussed before. But let's say you could make any filmmaker make a movie in any existing franchise. What filmmaker are you putting in what franchise?
Living filmmaker or any filmmaker?
Interesting. Let's say any. Yeah, why not? This isn't the big answer I'm prepared to give, but one I just thought of was like Christopher Nolan doing a James Bond movie, just because I know
that was talked about for a long time.
Yeah, like he obviously would like to do it, but I didn't think it's ever going to happen. So yeah, let's see that.
Supposedly he was discussed. Like, they talked to him for the new Bond movie before Denis Villeneuve is in. Supposedly, one of the big sticking points.
Dude, I forgot they announced that. Yeah.
Supposedly, one of the sticking points was Final Cut. They would not promise Final Cut to the director, whoever it was going to be. And for Nolan, that was apparently a sticking point, where he was like, I'm not going to do it if I don't have Final Cut. So that's...
Fair enough.
That's supposedly part of why Villeneuve ended up going in, and Nolan did not. I do not know how far the talks went with Nolan. I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember reading somewhere that was supposedly part of Nolan's thing, is that he wanted Final Cut, and Eon Productions, owned by Amazon, was not willing to give the director that level of control. Which I get and I don't at the same time. Like, if you're talking to Christopher Nolan, why wouldn't you want him to make as unabashedly a Christopher Nolan version of Bond as possible? But at the same time, it's still a franchise where there's expectations and whatever. This is a tough question. And I obviously you've talked about, people talk about like dream, scenarios all the time of like, I remember hearing like Brad Bird doing Superman was like a thing people talked about for a long time. They thought that would be really, really good. Like that he would come through and make that really, really good. So I'm trying to think of like, I can take any filmmaker and have them make any franchise movie I want. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Thor by George Miller, just because I feel like that was something that we almost had a chance at, and might still have a chance at. And I just think that would be really, really cool. But
There's Quentin Tarantino in Star Trek. He
yeah,
has
wrote
a
a Star Trek
treatment,
script.
right? Or maybe a full
he
script.
might have even
like
wrote a script.
there was meetings. Like it was a thing that the idea of, I don't get off too big of a tangent, but his stupid, 10 movies and I'm out thing, and the idea of like his last movie being Star Trek is so silly. I'm not even saying like that's not my answer, and I just like, what would that be? Like him doing whatever he wants in that universe. Like
I don't
what
know
is that?
Like, I don't know. Like I am not as unabashedly a Tarantino fan as most. Like I like his movies, but I don't quite have the love for them that people within this podcast have.
Wait, what? I think we're more or less on the
I'm
same
just saying
Tarantino
you like
level.
Tarantino's movies more than me.
You think so?
I kind of thought you were a bigger fan than I was.
Well, we both
like-
love Reservoir Dogs, right? Like both of them pretty high for
Reservoir
both
Dogs
of
is
us.
really, really good, but like my favorite Tarantino might be Jackie
Inglourious
Brown,
Bastards.
but,
Oh yeah, you did make that point.
I did that. I do like Inglourious Bastards quite a bit, but like Pulp Fiction, I feel like I'm the weirdo at the film school, because when people talk about Pulp Fiction, I'm just like, yeah, I get it. Like it's one of those things where like I guess maybe I came to it too late or whatever, but like I don't think Pulp Fiction is Tarantino's best movie, but a lot of people.
We're not going to do this right now because we're in the middle of something, but
Right.
we should rank his movies and then compare that. Maybe that'll be like Ask Andrew next week or something, because
Maybe.
I get the feeling that we're pretty similar, but you think I think we might be similar in that.
And I don't think, I just thought you were a bigger fan than I was. That you were like much
well-
more of like a Tarantino guy than me. That was all.
I
I'm
think
not trying to,
we're
there
both
was no
like
no gotcha intended. Here.
I know.
Like,
Listen,
I'm not trying to like.
let me
set
let
you
me
up.
let me ask you. Let me ask you if you agree with this. I think I get the sense that we both like to love. Honest, that sounds really weird. We either. Why is this hard for me to say? My brain is not working today. We rank the way you feel about his movies is like a range of like them to love them. Some are really good, some are okay. But we don't put much reverence on like the man himself. Like some people are like Tarantino was God, and I think we are both pretty icked out by that take. But his movies,
He is capable of making a really good movie, and I don't know that he does that every time. Like when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, I remember everybody that was just like, finally, like they were just like falling all over themselves to be like, finally Tarantino reminds everyone what cinema is supposed to be. And I was like, is the cinema in the room with us right now? Like I just kind of thought that was like a very hyperbolic take of just like needlessly hyperbolic. And I guess maybe that's the better way to put it. I don't mind Tarantino as much as I don't mind his fans. It's the Jesus problem.
sure. Anytime I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood since theaters, which I enjoyed it fine enough. But the more I reflect on the movie and try to figure out like what he's trying to say with it, I don't like any of the answers that I come up with. So I feel kind of grossed out by that movie. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't
Andrew,
think I'll ever own
any filmmaker,
Alfred
in
Hitchcock on
any,
James Bond.
Okay, that's fun. All right, you want to elaborate on that? What's where are you thinking he would go with that? Like, what? Okay, all right, fair enough.
Okay, no, I got you. I just wanted to do the David Lynch. Sorry, elaborate on that. No, but no, I just obviously you watch things like North by Northwest, or you watch things like even Topaz or Marnie, which he makes with Sean Connery. I think there's a pretty good mystery spy film. He made several mystery spy films during his career. Obviously, I think the man just, James Bond kind of hits. Dr. No is what, 66? I think is when Dr. No comes out. So by
I'm
that
nodding
point,
because it sounds right, but I don't know.
but by that point, Hitchcock's kind of at his most famous, whereas James Bond is still kind of figuring it out, and it doesn't really figure it out until the late 60s. And by that point, Hitchcock is largely winding down, and by the 70s, he only makes a couple of films. So I think he just kind of misses being able to kind of like by the time James Bond becomes a juggernaut, I think it's, and he may have just simply had no interest in doing something like that, which is very possible. Or he would have been too expensive or whatever.
They did meet with Hitchcock, but they wouldn't give him final cut, I heard, so it never.
Shut up.
Never happened.
But I think that would be like, if I'm doing like dream, like anything, like a Hitchcock James Bond feels like it's a pretty good. You know, David Lynch talked to George Lucas about Return of the Jedi, and I do wonder what that looks like. But David Lynch was the one who was just like, what is this? There's this whole fun story about David Lynch going to meet with George Lucas about Return of the Jedi, because all he'd really done at that point was, I think, Elephant Man and Eraserhead. So the fact that George Lucas saw those and was like, yeah, like, let's get that guy for Return of the Jedi, that just feels so strange to me, because then he eventually, you know, after that he goes and does Dune. But he like remembers meeting with George Lucas, and he had this massive headache, and like he really didn't want to, and so like he meets with George, and George is showing him like the Ewoks and stuff, and he's just kind of like he gets to the end of it, and he's just kind of like, George, why don't you direct this? And he's the guy that kind of put it out there that like George Lucas really doesn't like directing. Like, he really actually doesn't want to do it. Like, he wants to set up this world, and he wants to do his thing, but like he would really love for somebody else to direct it. He really doesn't want to do that himself. And so Lynch kind of left that and was like, George, you've built out all of this stuff. Why don't you do this? And George was like, it's not really what I want to do. And like, so Lynch like leaves, and he talks like the whole time he has like a migraine. Like, he's literally like got this migraine while he's being showed Endor and the Ewoks, and he's just like, oh God. And he calls his agent after the meeting, and he's like, dude, I really don't want to do this, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to live in this world for this. And his agent's finally like, David, calm down. You don't have to do it. Like, no one's making you do this. But at the same time, Lynch was like, but I respect George a lot. He and I both make the movies in the ways that we want to make them, and we're not particularly compromising. He's like, the only difference is that his movies make a lot of money, and mine don't. But it's one of those things where you just, you get a little, David Lynch does things the way he does things, but he's got no disrespect to people like George Lucas, which I just think is a very refreshing way to hear about it. But what would a David Lynch Return of the Jedi look like? That would be fun. But I'm going
is
all
there
time,
another franchise you'd want to put David Lynch in?
David Lynch's James Bond. That would probably be a trip. But
Anybody,
everybody just does James Bond. No,
James,
David Lynch, I don't like, as far as like what I consider David Lynch's sensibilities. Like, I just don't know that there's really like a franchise that I think like gravitates to that. Like, is there a franchise that's like known for like non-sequential, non-linear storytelling with multiple convergent stories that don't collapse on each other? Like, it's like Dune, I think, is about as close as you get, which, if I'm going all time, I'd probably say like Alfred Hitchcock on a James Bond. If I'm going for something like now, I would be very interested in like a George Miller Thor movie. I think that would be
It's so funny. I think any filmmaker I like doing whatever they want with James Bond is exciting, because maybe it's because like
there's a lot you can do there.
Like the Coen brothers doing a James Bond movie. That sounds great. Like, it's interesting. Okay, Andrew, here was the thing I thought of that made me want to ask this question. I would love to see David Fincher make an alien movie. Yes.
You're not going to believe this.
I want to see David Fincher today at the peak of his powers. Let's say have final cut on an alien movie. Make the alien movie that he actually
I know what you mean.
Make.
I know what you mean.
Yes,
Don't worry.
yes.
I just couldn't resist the. You're not going to believe this, man. No, of course, yeah. Like David Lynch.
It's something he would obviously never do. Like, he's never going back to that franchise after that experience. But like, what if he had a clean slate somehow? Got to do whatever he wanted in that sandbox.
I don't know, man. Like, I would say the same thing, but at the same time, that man is filming a sequel to a Quentin Tarantino movie right now for Netflix. Like,
exactly, he's wasting his talents. Like, let's. I guess you could say that about putting him in any franchise, but.
I can't. That headline will forever be like, I don't know if there was ever a moment that I thought I was losing it more than reading that headline of like David Fincher to write Tarantino's scripted sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was like,
To direct.
And I was like, what? It seemed like, and for Netflix, no less. Like, not just is Fincher making a sequel to a Tarantino movie, it won't even go to theaters. Like, what? I still don't believe that's happening. It's very, very strange to me. But obviously seeing Fincher at the peak of his powers making an Alien movie, like, you know, the David Fincher of Seven or Zodiac making an Alien movie. Yeah. I actually would kind of like that because I don't know that Fincher has really done anything kind of
Sci-fi?
like Alien. Yeah, he hasn't really done a sci-fi thing since Alien. Like everything since then has been kind of more like kind of grounded, gritty drama mystery stuff.
I mean,
like,
he
I don't know
hasn't.
that he's
You know,
really-
it's. I think it's arguable, but he hasn't even done horror. If you think about it, I mean, he does like thrillers. He does serial killer stuff. He does like something that has like that feel of a horror movie. But I wouldn't call Seven horror. I wouldn't call Zodiac horror. But you could very easily see him making a horror movie. Like he has the sensibilities for it.
Yeah, like looking at his filmography, it's Alien 3, but then it's 7, The Game, Fight Club, Panic Room, Zodiac, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which I guess is technically sci-fi.
I thought you were gonna say technically horror.
I mean, you have to watch Brad Pitt, but
that
Social
old-
Network,
old
Girl with
baby.
the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl, Mank, The Killer, like they're all like, yeah, like, you know, you get something like a Gone Girl, which is like a drama mystery thing. You get The Killer, which is like an action film. So like he does that, but like he's never really gone back to anything kind of other world. Like Alien 3 maybe just burned the man on sci-fi too. So like I don't know. I'd be very curious what he would do with something. But like everything he does now, he also does for Netflix. Like, you know, between Mindhunter, Mank, The Killer, The Adventures of Cliff Booth, which will have a $200 million budget. Like, why? Dude, the amount of money that Netflix spends on movies is insane to me.
Twice subscriptions are like $30 now.
Right. Yeah. Which is insane as well. But
Oh, I would love to hear from all of you. Any filmmaker in any franchise, which combination excites you the most? I would love to see Edgar Wright in Fast and Furious. I think that'd be a fun combination.
all Baby Driver.
It is great. But he should do it again with a different cast. Come back next week when we will be talking about the Monkees and their movie Head. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Blue Sky and check our show notes for his SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you.